Hey there, it's Anna from Keto and Pearls. So today I'm bringing you a very informal video on how to make the sourdough sandwich bread that I posted on the blog recently. Now, this is not a keto recipe or a low carb recipe, but it is a really clean recipe for homemade bread. Now, my kids still love eating sandwiches, peanut butter and jellies, grilled cheeses, all the things. So bread has stayed a part of my grocery purchases for them. Over the last couple of years, I had transitioned to buying like kind of a fancy, organic bread that was clean. But when we moved out to the country last year, those options are not around in these grocery stores. And so I found myself in a little bit of a pickle. I had kids that wanted peanut butter and jelly for lunch, and there was no bread at the store that I was willing to buy them. So I came up with an alternative. I'll make it myself. So I tried making them like artisan sourdough or San Francisco sourdough, whatever you want to call it, but they weren't big fans. Understandably so. It's kind of hard to chew. It's not soft like they're used to. I love it. Wasn't their favorite. So I was reminded of this type of sourdough when we were visiting my husband's family, and his grandmother sent me home with this sourdough starter. So I've been making it ever since she sent it home. I make it twice a week. It's so easy. I actually grew up eating this bread. My mom used to make it all the time, but for whatever reason, I had just forgot about it. So I shared the recipe on the website, and it's popular. People are liking it. However, a lot of people have asked, "How can you show me how to do this?" Bread baking doesn't come naturally for a lot of people. It didn't come naturally for me at first. I'm not the best bread baker, I will warn you, but it works, and this recipe is really hard to mess up. I am using in my recipe, I'm using King Arthur organic bread flour. I'm using organic cane sugar, although I do prefer to use raw honey when I make the bread. I just didn't have enough this particular day, and my recipe calls for sugar, so that's that. I'm using Redmond pink salt, and I'm using avocado oil as my oil of choice. So I'll put all those things in the notes below for you and link them. And then we'll come back at the end and talk about the bread. So without further ado, let's bake some bread. Okay, so today we are going to feed our Southern sourdough starter. This is a starter that I've been using for several months now. It's been in the fridge. This is pretty much what it looks like when you haven't fed it. You can see that it's separated. I have swirled this just a smidge before setting this in front of the camera, so that's why it kind of looks a little messy. But we're gonna feed it today. I am storing my starter in a weck jar. You can use any kind of jar. I just really like these. The lid sits on it kind of loosely. They hold up well. If this falls, it doesn't shatter. I like it better than a mason jar because it has a wider mouth, so it's easier to stir. We're going to add to it. All right, so we have, this is warm filtered water, 1 cup. I got this water out of my Berkey. We have potato flakes. So this is just dehydrated, here, let's move the camera a little bit. This is just dehydrated potato flakes, unseasoned. And, all right, let's move this back. We have sugar, okay? Everything in here. Now, some people might say, oh, you need to dissolve the potato flakes in the hot water. I don't really ever do that, and I've never had a problem. I've never seen it bubble like that before. All right, use this little itty bitty whisk because it was closer. I'm just gonna stir this up really, really good. Nothing fancy here. Okay, at this point, my camera stopped recording. Basically, I mixed the starter and we're gonna let it sit 8 to 12 hours. Okay, so here is our sourdough starter. A couple hours, a few hours 4 hours. After making it, you can see that it's forming like a head on the top. Stuff falling because I just kind of jostled it as I moved the jar. But this is how your starter should look. That top layer will get thicker. And if you open it up and smell it, you can look inside, see how it's getting nice and thick, and this is what it should look like. It's the complete opposite of San Francisco sourdough starter. It is the next morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, and my sourdough starter has been sitting out since I made it yesterday, so that's not quite 24 hours, but definitely more than 12, but that's totally fine. So we're gonna make the bread dough. First, what I'm gonna do, look, see how the starter is real foamy on top. It's got these holes. That's good, okay? So first what we're gonna do is give this a good little stir. I'm just gonna grab my dough whisk, since I'm gonna end up using this anyways. Just gonna stir this up, okay? Right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add all of my wet ingredients to this bowl right here. But I'm gonna start with a cup of starter. So that's what it looks like. It smells very kombucha-y, if you know what that smell is like. Sour, fermented. To that, 1.5 cups warm filtered water, 1/2 cup of oil. I use avocado oil. Now I'm adding my flour. I'm using the scoop and scrape method to add 6 cups of flour to this bowl. You don't want to pack your flour in too densely because that'll put too much flour into your bread mixture. After I add all the flour, I'm going to add salt and sugar, although you can also use other sweeteners like honey or monk fruit. So I'm going to give that a little whisk, and then once that's incorporated, I'll pour in our liquid ingredients and start stirring all of that up really well with the dough whisk. It's not going to look like it'll come together, but I promise you that it will. Once I get it to a point where it's pretty mixed in, I finish it off with my hands just so that I can scrape the bottom of the bowl really well. We're not kneading the dough here. It doesn't need to look perfect, but you're just gonna cover it up, let it rise for 8 to 12 hours. Okay, so we're at 8 hours of dough rising. You can actually tell just by looking, you can see it's all the way up here. So this is what it looks like after 8 hours. You remember, see how high it is? See how I can like impression it and it kind of bounces back? If I pull it, you can see the gluten strands. This is good. I'm gonna leave it for now because I'm not ready to knead it yet. It's 6:30, so this bread's been rising for almost 9 hours. And here we are. See, it's smoother on top. It's doubled in volume. You can poke it and it comes kind of back. You can see the gluten strands here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna scrape this all out of the bowl and then I'm gonna knead it with my hands. See how smooth that is underneath? Now you don't have to knead this a lot because it's going to rise for a second time. When we let it rise for the second time, we're gonna rise it in whatever we're gonna bake it in. Again, you don't really have to knead this dough a whole lot, just a little bit. I usually just kind of roll it like this into a log, massage it a little bit like this, because I'm doing bread, or it's like sandwich bread. So right about in the middle. Now, on a traditional sourdough, you would have to shape this, and you would have to lament the dough, and you cut the dough and score the dough. This one, you don't have to do any of that too. It is a stickier dough, but that's okay. This is just what I consider kneading it. It's sticky, but for the most part, it sticks to itself. Lining with parchment paper helps with even cooking. The dough doesn't burn on the bottom. I'm gonna tuck these little babies in. There we go. They're ready for bed. Okay, here is our bread this morning after a second rise. See how it rose and took up the whole shape of the pan here. It's coming up over the lip. When these bake, they will get even bigger. They'll be beautiful. They look perfect. Here is our finished product. Look at that beauty. Organic, clean, no preservatives. Ready for the best grilled cheese ever. This is cooled bread that I'm cutting. You can see how smoothly it cuts, how pretty and even it is inside. You really need to make this and stop buying bread at the store. You can thank me later. Okay, as you can see, this bread is really easy to make. Just take some time, but your actual hands-on time making the bread dough is minimal. So I hope you'll give it a chance. If you like it, leave a comment on the blog. Let me know on social media. These days you can find me at @AnnaHunley_. Follow me along over there. You'll get glimpses into all of our homesteading, our move from the city to the country, and recipes as they come up. Also subscribe to the emails on the blog. There's always little forms as you're scrolling through the blog posts, and that way you won't miss future blog posts or other announcements we may have here. So anyways, I hope you guys really enjoy this spread. Let me know how you love it. Talk soon. Bye.